there was blood everywhere.
Literally so much blood.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Emmylou. Thank you so much for watching. Today I'm gonna do a story time about how my friend literally almost died on my birthday. So if you want a story about sweat and blood and tears and actual death, then stay tuned. Let's just jump right in. Okay, so I have two roommates named Maddy and Anna, and they wanted to take me out for my birthday, so they took me out this past Friday. And they're so sweet, and they got me insomnia cookies. If you don't know what insomnia cookies is, reevaluate your life, move closer to a major city, because they literally, the best thing ever, they have cookies till 3 a.m. insomnia cookies. Please sponsor me, I love your work.
Anyway.
They got me insomnia cookies. They put a candle in it, because I'm not like huge on cake, so like, they're so sweet. Also, I know, controversial topic, I'm not huge on cake.
Anyway.
They got me insomnia cookies. It was so nice. We got all ready, we went out, and we go to the Pit. And for those of you who don't know, the Pit is the People's Improv Theater. It's in New York City. It's a bar in the front, and then they have the theaters in the back where groups do improv, and it's so funny, and we always have such a good time. So we go there, and none of us drink. We don't drink anything. We're just having a sober night. We're just like hanging out. It's totally chill. We're just having fun. So we see a great improv show.
Okay, so we're gonna start now.
And so we see the show, and it's like 11 p.m. Like, it's not even late, okay? We saw a fun show. We laughed hysterically. So like, let's just go back home. So
This is where it gets crazy.
we leave the Pit and we're heading home. Everything's fine. We're all having such a good time. It was just so like fun, like genuine fun.
So.
Take a shot every time I say so. We're on our way back and we take the subway and we get to our stop. And I take this train all the time, and so many times the stupid escalator is not doing its job. It's not being an escalator, it's being stairs, and it has one job, which is to be an escalator as opposed to stairs. But nevertheless, literally half the time the escalator is not working. It's just being stairs.
So.
Every time that happens, I freak out a little. I don't know if you could notice, but this makes me
Angry.
so I'm always excited for the escalator. And guess what's not working?
The escalator.
So.
We're walking up the stairs. I'm behind Maddy. Sorry, correction. We're walking up the escalator. Whatever. We're walking up the escalator and I'm behind Maddy, and she trips, but she catches herself on the stair. Like, you know when you catch yourself with your hand and just kind of pop right back up and keep going like nothing ever happened? And so I see this happen because she's right in front of me. So she catches herself and keeps going, and I literally just like, whoop, and then I was like, are you okay? And she's like, yep, and like kept walking up the escalator. Didn't even think about it. We get to the top and I hear her say, like a few steps up from me,
Oh, I'm bleeding.
and I thought, like, you know when you like scratch your like ankle and you don't even notice it, and then you look down and there's like a little bit of blood and you're like,
Oh, I'm bleeding.
you know, like that. I don't even give it a second thought. I just think she like scratched her foot, like it's just like a little bit of blood, whatever.
So.
I get to the top of the staircase and she goes,
Oh, I'm bleeding a lot.
so I look down and I have literally never seen so much blood in my entire life. Her entire foot was covered in blood, and then she lifted up her foot and it just started like pouring out of her toe. Like it was literally like so, like it was like a you turned on a water fountain. It was so much blood. And she was wearing like sandals, so you could like, it was just like literally everywhere. And I looked and I was like, oh, okay.
So.
Me and Anna get Maddy over to the steps. Keep in mind we're in the subway. We're in the New York City subway system. This is disgusting. We get her over the steps and we sit her down and I like really look at her foot, and it's just like her toe is just like sliced. Like the whole bottom of it is just sliced. And I was like,
Okay, you're gonna need stitches.
like there's no way around this. You are actually 100% gonna need stitches. Like there's no way. So I'm like, okay, we need to stop the bleeding. So Anna doesn't have anything, so I look in my pocketbook and I find a cloth headband, and I'm like,
Oh my gosh, thank goodness.
so I wrap it around her toe. It's her big toe, by the way. I don't think I said that, but it's her big toe is like sliced. Like it's just like whoosh. So I wrap it around her toe to stop the bleeding, but it's honestly like bleeding through and around it. Like it's not totally helping, but it's tight enough that it's like stopping most of the bleeding for now.
So.
I'm like, okay, Anna, can you please Google an urgent care or like a 24-hour clinic? We do not need to go to the ER on a Friday at midnight in Manhattan / Brooklyn. So Anna's looking up clinics and stuff, and literally there's nothing open. I go over to the MTA guy, you know, the guy that sits in the booth, and I'm like,
hey, do you know like any clinics that are open? My friend just cut her foot like really bad right there.
And he's like, what? And doesn't hear me for 9 hours. And I'm like,
my friend is bleeding. Can you please help me?
He's like, is she okay? Do you need an ambulance? And I'm like,
no, that's what I'm trying to avoid here. Like, where's the clinic?
and he's like, the hospital's that way, and like tells me how to get there on the bus. And I'm like, you're not helpful. I'm like, all right, we gotta go to the hospital. Like, there's no way around this. We have to go to the ER. So here's where everything gets terrible. We call an Uber while Maddie's bleeding everywhere. The Uber comes and me and Anna pick her up and then carry her to the Uber and put her in. The Uber driver gets us to the hospital. We walk into the emergency room. That's a lie. Anna puts Maddie on her back and we go to the emergency room.
We're going to the emergency room because Maddy fucked up her toe. That's my headband. There was blood everywhere. Literally so much blood.
So we get inside the ER and Maddie can barely walk and she like hobbles over to the front desk and they don't even ask her what her problem is. Like, she just walked into the emergency room and they were like, hi, what's your name? And then they just gave her 2 forms to fill out, like 2 full-page forms to fill out. And I'm like, this girl could be dying. She wasn't, but she could be, and you're not asking her what her problem is? Don't you think that a hospital should say,
hi, name and reason of visit?
like, don't you think that would be appropriate for a hospital to do?
Anyway,
Maddie fills out these forms, still bleeding, literally through my headband and around it. It was wrapped around like 5 times. She's bleeding on the hospital floor. So she fills out these 2 forms, which takes like 5 minutes to fill out, and she hands them back to the woman who works there, and then the woman who works there is like, so why are you here today? This is a hospital. Why do you think she's here? To buy a muffin? She's here because she's hurt.
oh,
And Maddie just like lifts up her foot and she's like,
I'm bleeding everywhere.
and the lady goes,
oh, that's bad.
and I was like, why else would we be at a hospital? So after seeing how much she's bleeding and verbally saying, oh, that's bad, instead of saying we'll get you right in, something like that, she hands Maddie a cup to pee in and says, please leave us a urine sample and then we'll call your name when we're ready for you. This is a hospital and she cut her foot. She is now expected to walk with a actively bleeding toe through the hospital to the public bathroom and walk in without a shoe on and leave a urine sample? We go sit down and Maddie's just bleeding and she has left a blood trail everywhere she's gone.
All of Maddy's blood.
This is,
I kid you not, after 30 minutes of waiting and Maddie bleeding, they call her name. So we're like,
Oh my gosh, yay!
she goes in and she comes out maybe 3 minutes later with a sack on and sits down next to us. And I'm like,
what happened?
and she says that she goes in there and some random person cleaned her foot, but not the cut because they said that they wanted the doctor to clean the cut. Then she wrapped her toe and put a hospital sock on her and said,
Please wait for your name to be called.
number one, that's fine. Hospitals need to triage. They need to say this person needs to get treated faster than this person. Like, if somebody comes in with an appendicitis, they should get seen before Maddie, whose just toe is bleeding. That's fine. I get that. I just thought it was a little ridiculous because all it needed was like a few stitches or a butterfly stitch and it would have been fine, but whatever.
So then begins the wait.
We got to the hospital at midnight. Just to keep a timeline, arrived to the hospital at midnight. So we're just waiting. And then about 2 hours go by and we're like, been a while. But I've waited in a hospital for longer. I've waited in an emergency room for like 6 hours before and it sucks, but it happens. So I was like, we might be here for a while, whatever. So it's 2 a.m. We've been there for 2 hours. Also, keep in mind that we went straight from going out for my birthday to the hospital. So all of us are in like cute outfits. This is already just like So about an hour passes and now it's like 3 a.m. So we all start to discuss what we're gonna do because Anna has her alarm to wake up set at 5 a.m. because she has to go back really early to Long Island for a fundraiser.
So
Me and Maddie's phones are both dying. I think mine's dead at this point, I'm not sure. And Anna's the only one who has like a really live phone and none of us have phone chargers. So eventually we decide that Anna's gonna Uber back to our apartment, grab her stuff that she needs for Long Island in the morning and our chargers, and then Uber back to the hospital, give us the chargers, wait with us for a little bit in case Maddie does get in, and then eventually just Uber to her train and take the train to Long Island.
it's a lot.
So now it's around 4 a.m. We've been there for 4 hours and it's around 4 a.m. that I really start to like lose my steam. Before that I had a lot of energy. I was like really trying to keep like morale up and like, you know, be like fun and whatever and try to just keep everybody's energy good. But around 4 I start to hit a wall and I'm like,
I'm tired.
we had all gotten up early the day that we went out for my birthday, so we had just been up straight for almost 24 hours at this point. So I start to hit a wall and I'm really losing my energy.
So
4:30 comes around, Maddie's name still hasn't been called, so Anna just leaves and she's like, bye, love you the most, and goes to Long Island without sleeping, and then goes to a fundraiser where it poured the whole morning and the fundraiser was outside. So that's fun for her. So now it's just me and Maddie left and it's 4:30 in the morning and we've been up for so long and we're exhausted and Maddie's just sitting there and we just wait. About an hour and a half later, a janitor comes into the waiting room that we're in and tells us that we have to move to the pediatric waiting room. Like everyone has to move to the pediatric waiting room because they have to clean this one because they're doing a shift change of doctors. We had been there so long that we were there for the shift change. We hobble over to the pediatrics stupid waiting room and we sit there and we're just sitting there and I just kind of like look behind me because there's a window behind me and I see a Dunkin' Donuts across the street and I just looked at her and I was like,
do you want Dunkin' Donuts?
and she was like,
Yeah.
so I went across the street and got us sandwiches and I got her coffee. I hate coffee. Controversial fact, I literally could not hate coffee more.
Anyway,
I got back and she's still waiting there and now it's about 6:30 in the morning, 6:45. Around this time, I'm really starting to get like actually anxious. Like I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this. I can't believe you've been waiting this long. Like people have come and gone before us with much lesser injuries and I'm just confused.
so
I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like I need to get out of here. So I do the next best thing.
I call my dad.
And I'm like, my dad always wakes up early. He'll be awake, whatever. So I call him and he answers and he's like,
hello.
like obviously very much not awake. So I was like,
Hey, did I wake you up? So sorry.
and he was like,
Yeah, are you okay?
and I was like, so I'm fine. Everything's fine. But I've been in the hospital since midnight last night and we literally haven't been seen yet and Maddie cut open her foot and it was really bad and it was on the subway and I'm afraid it's gonna be infected and everything is terrible and I haven't slept in 24 hours. So then we hang up and I'm just sitting in the waiting room again. And 7 a.m. hits and I'm like, we've been sitting here for 7 hours and it was the worst experience. So we're sitting there for 7 hours and in my head at this point, I'm like, okay, literally any moment she's gonna be called. Like there's no way. There's literally no way. So then another hour goes by. It's now 8 a.m. We've been there for at least a decade. And at this point, I've given up. I'm like, we're gonna be here for 10 hours or 13 hours and like that's just how it is and this is my life now and I now live in this waiting room of this hospital and I'm just gonna be freezing and cold and tired for the rest of my life. So I've come to terms with my fate and all of a sudden around 8:30, 8:15 I hear Maddie's name called over the loudspeaker and my heart literally dropped. Like I felt immediately nauseous. I freaked out, but like internally because externally I was way too tired to freak out. So Maddie immediately gets up, drops all of her stuff on me and just walks to the room where she's supposed to go.
So
I'm still waiting in the waiting room. Maddie's in there. I text her maybe like 5 minutes after she's got in and I'm like,
hey, like how are you doing?
and it doesn't deliver. So I'm like, there's no service in there.
So
Now I'm alone in the waiting room and it's 8:40 or something like that and I'm exhausted at this point. And eventually I close my eyes and I just like lean back and I start to fall asleep and I was asleep for maybe 45 seconds, like literally less than a minute. And I'd finally fallen asleep and everybody's phone at the same time just goes ding 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 and it was,
oh my gosh.
I freaked out. I like jolted up and I was like, what is going on? And I checked my phone and there was a severe weather alert, and I look outside and it is pouring. Looks like the end of the world outside. And there's flood warnings on our phone. That's why everybody's phone like dinged at the same time. And so now I'm just awake and I'm just waiting for Maddy, who doesn't have service, and I've been here for almost 9 hours.
So
I wait for her, I can't fall back asleep, and finally, after so long, she walks out at like 9:15 in the morning, and I immediately jolt up and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was so happy. I order an Uber and the Uber comes within 5 minutes, and I am so grateful to be inside that stupid Uber. And we go back to our apartment and we pull up to our street, and our entire street is blocked off. It is still pouring. Maddy can't put on her shoe because she can't put on a sandal because her toe is completely wrapped up and she has to wear this sock. Also, before we had left the hospital, I grabbed Maddy an umbrella bag to put over her leg and foot because she couldn't put on her shoe, so I wanted to protect her dressings and her sock from getting soaked.
So
The Uber pulls up to our block and he can't turn because it's totally blocked off. So I'm like, I guess we're walking in the pouring rain when Maddy can't walk. We get out of the Uber in the pouring rain and Maddy can barely walk, and we hobble over to our apartment and we're soaking wet, and then we have to walk up the stairs. So we finally get up, we get into our apartment, Maddy, you know, gets all settled in, and then my dad comes and picks me up. So I still haven't gone to sleep. My dad picks me up around probably like 11 a.m. or so and drives me back to Long Island, and I'm super awake at this point. Like, I'm just so awake in the car. I'm like telling him all that happened. I'm like doing this whole story time to him basically. I get in my house, I go immediately to bed, and I sleep for like 4 hours. So the whole night was an absolute wreck. It was totally terrible. I will never go back to that hospital. Maddy literally almost died because of it, so it was so terrible, but at least I got a good story time out of it. So please like, comment, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you.